Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for joining us today for a virtual event, a virtual town hall. We're happy to have you here with us, even if we can't be together in person. It's nice to be able to connect virtually. Before we get started, I just wanted to share a couple things with you. This event is being recorded for future sharing. Anyone who was not able to attend today, we will be sending the link out a little later. We encourage you to submit questions via the chat box on the right side of your screen. You can mark it with the Q for question. And we will have a Q&A portion of the segment where we can get back to you. Anything we don't get to, all unanswered questions, we'll put in a follow-up email and send out to you so that we are sharing, getting back to you. And all lines will be muted, and we can get started. I'm now going to turn it over to Sarah Hertz, our Chief Development Officer, and she will take it from there.
Welcome, everybody. We're so glad you chose to join us. I am Sarah Hertz, the Chief Development Officer for Philabundance, and COVID poses unprecedented challenges for all of us, and we're hoping to use the next hour to give you some sense of how Philabundance is changing its work to meet these challenges. And I just wanted to add, just yesterday, we heard from Maria, who runs one of our member agencies in South Jersey, and she said there is, quote, a kind of excellence that comes out of Philabundance that is unsurpassed. That's a wonderful feeling, and we're glad that our agency members think that we deliver the highest caliber of service, and we hope that you'll leave this town hall today feeling similarly. So today you're going to hear about the changes to the food insecurity landscape since COVID, how we're working to meet demands, the impact of COVID on our financial well-being, and how we work with government partners and government programs. And as Laura said earlier, we welcome your questions at the end. Today's presenters, there's me, Sarah Hertz. We are also going to hear from Jess Wyckoff, who is our Deputy Director of our Ending Hunger for Good initiative, Kait Bowdler, who heads our sustainability program, as well as Scully, the Director of our Government Affairs team, and finally from Laura Schepps, our Chief Financial Officer. Now I'm going to hand you over to Jess Wyckoff, who's going to talk about how we're serving people differently than we were even a month ago.
Hi, everybody. Thanks again for joining today. As Sarah mentioned, my name is Jess Wyckoff. I've been working at Philabundance for the past 10 years. I currently work in our Ending Hunger for Good department, but I've also been assisting with the agency relations team during this time. So I'm here to talk about our current food distribution efforts. But before I dive in, I just want to do a quick level setting of our normal operations so we're all on the same page. As you all know, Philabundance distributes to over 350 hunger relief agencies throughout our 9-county service area. This includes southeastern Pennsylvania and southern New Jersey. Our current agency network is made up of food cupboards, homeless shelters, emergency kitchens, and after-school programs. So last year, Philabundance distributed over 27 million pounds through the network, and we served about 90,000 people each week. Within the first 4 weeks of our COVID-19 response, approximately 70 of our members temporarily shut down their operations. Most of these organizations reported closing due to health and safety issues and lack of volunteers and staff. But that being said, within the last 2 weeks, members have slowly started reopening. And as of April 23rd, 20 agencies have relaunched their programming. And this is due in part to the increased demand from clients, additional access to personal protective equipment, and a steady stream of volunteers stepping up to help. So our agency network has seen an increase of 30 to 50% more people requiring food assistance each week. Many of the people seeking food assistance had never had to rely on emergency food sources, but due to being out of work and having less access to school meals, they're turning to the pantry for support. There's an increased demand for all product types, shelf-stable, meat, fresh produce, and dairy. To put this in context, one of our agencies in Delaware County reported that in March, they served 361 households for a total of 921 people, including adults, seniors, and children. In the past 2 weeks, they've noticed a 60% increase in new people attending their free food pantry every Friday, and they have since had to open up an additional distribution on Wednesdays from 10 to 2 to accommodate the surge of people that they see. So on that note, many of our agencies in our network have adapted their operations to meet the new and ever-changing safety requirements to protect staff, volunteers, and community members. This includes moving distributions outdoors, pre-packing food boxes in lieu of our traditional choice pantry model, and also providing drive-through contactless pickups. As I mentioned with our Delaware County agencies, many agencies are also expanding their hours of operation. And they're also beginning to provide home delivery whenever possible. Most sites have recruited volunteers to help maintain social distancing protocols when lines form on site. And we as an organization are continuing to provide personal protective equipment, cleaning supplies, and bags for all of our agencies to help them out with this new landscape that they're working in. So in addition to our existing agencies, we've also been assisting to set up temporary food distributions. Particularly in Philadelphia, to meet the growing need, the city has partnered with Philabundance and the Share Food program to establish 40 additional food distribution sites each week. The sites receive 400 boxes twice a week, every Monday and every Thursday. The city distribution sites are a mixture of Philabundance agencies, Share agencies, and Philadelphia Parks and Recreation locations. We just completed 4 full weeks of the city emergency food distributions. Philabundance is providing 100% of the produce for the Thursday boxes, and Share is providing all of the dry shelf-stable product for Monday boxes. These boxes alone account for an additional 240,000 pounds of produce being distributed in the city of Philadelphia each week. So city staff and community volunteers are packing the boxes at the city's central warehouse in Roxborough. The city is coordinating the volunteer recruitment and on-site volunteer management. And all 3 partners have mobilized our fleet of trucks to make the weekly deliveries to the distribution sites. Overall, the site representatives are saying that things are going well and they're getting easier each week. A few sites are challenged by clients not adhering to social distancing. So with the help of the Philadelphia Police Department and community volunteers, we're trying to maintain that safety protocol at those distributions. And we heard from one elderly client who attends one of our distributions in the Northeast. She shared that she receives Social Security and she uses her pension, but that's just not enough right now. And the drive-up distribution that her local agency is providing helps keep her fed and feeling safe because she's afraid to go to the grocery store in the current environment. The last thing I want to touch on is the Philabundance Community Kitchen. So the Community Kitchen has played a key role in providing meals for the city's homeless population both before and during the COVID-19 crisis. The Hub of Hope in Center City, Philadelphia has moved to a grab-and-go box meal distribution, and this is replacing their dine-in option. It assists with safety and social distancing requirements by having these meals distributed above ground at predetermined sites with security on site. Regular meal production at the kitchen continues to operate on a drop-and-go basis for all of our existing contracts. And the kitchen has seen an increase in prepared meal requests over the last month or so and are providing more than 17,000 additional meals on a monthly basis. In addition to the ongoing meal production, construction at the new kitchen site in North Philly continues to go smoothly. And within the next week, we're expecting the structure will be completely enclosed and the project is expected to be completed by the end of July, barring any unforeseen circumstances. So that's all I've got for food distribution, and I'm going to hand it over to Kait Bowdler, Director of Sustainability, to talk about the different ways we're acquiring food.
Thanks, Jess. So as Jess mentioned, I am Director of Sustainability here at Philabundance, and before coming to Philabundance, I spent over 10 years of my career with innovative nonprofit management, including overseeing the Campus Kitchens Project, the national arm of DC Central Kitchen that is student-led hunger relief efforts. And now I feel privileged to be able to lead a team that works closely with our agency relations and food acquisition departments to make sure that we can source and distribute as much food as possible. So similar to Jess, I want to do a level set and talk to you a little bit about what normal operations look like and how does Philabundance work. So we actually get food donations from across the whole food industry, everything to community food drives. We have worked hard over 35 years to figure out best practices and structures that work for all of those things. So from farms and manufacturers, we can do tractor trailer loads of product from across the country to community food drives that only need a car and that can be dropped off to our agencies. So we make sure to most efficiently allocate our resources to those things and then get it to our agency partners. We have a network, again, as Jess said, of about 3 agencies spread across 9 counties. So for us, it's really about what can we all do to make sure that the system works well. In 2019, we distributed over 27 million pounds of food, over 70 pounds of food that otherwise would have gone to waste. And so again, it's a lot of donations from those different areas, but now with COVID-19, that whole system has been put into chaos, and we have had to figure out quickly how to change and adapt. So again, before COVID-19, we had about 50% fresh produce and over 75% rescued. And for food purchases, we only purchased about 10% of our annual budget because the majority of the food was donated. Now, donations are down about 20% per month, but that's actually masking the real story. So on top of donations being down about 20%, we're seeing gluts in certain areas. So we've had a huge increase in produce and milk, but we've seen an equal decrease shelf-stable items, canned goods, and protein. If you think about it, all the things that you're buying at a grocery store are the same things that we need for our agency partners. And right now, we're just struggling to get the right mix of food that all of our agencies and our clients need. So for us, we've seen opportunities, in fact. Following the 2 weeks of COVID-19 and the closure for all non-essential businesses, over 100 new food retailers and businesses reached out to us in order to donate their food. While they were going through their own personal crisis, they wanted to make sure that they're still providing for others. And we feel really privileged that we were able to capture as much food of that as possible. So we had a bump in March, but we're not necessarily going to see that same bump in April because now all of those businesses are closed. In fact, one of the challenges that we're going to have ongoing is that over 40% of our grocery and retail donors, so 330 locations, have had to have in their donation volume of about half. So 50% decrease in the food that they're able to provide. So they're still working with us, but there just isn't as much food to go around right now. Again, as Jess mentioned, on the other side, the demand has increased astronomically, up to 30 to 50% per agency. So while we are able to meet original targets as far as the food we're sourcing, it's not enough. We know that we're going to keep needing to bring in more food as the months go on because this is a long-term challenge we're working to meet. In addition to our regular operations, we've also now taken on additional operations. So above our usual amounts, we're now doing 240,000 pounds of food to city distributions. 80,000 of that is food that we have to purchase, produce directly to support those operations. And then in April, we're actually on track to double our distributions. So normally it's about 2 million pounds of food every month. In April, we're looking about 4 million pounds this month alone, and we expect those increases to maintain for at least 6 months. The challenge with that is that now we're having to purchase a lot more of that product, and prices are about 20 to 30% increased on average. So all of those canned goods are now a little bit more expensive for us to get. So it's how do we make sure we're getting as much food most cost effectively right now? So I think for us, it's a weird place for all of us to be in right now. A lot of the businesses that are typically our food donors are actually now reaching out and asking us for support for their employees. It's a really hard place for them. They are usually the ones that are donating food to us, and now they're asking for that food. On top of that, they're seeing a lot of challenges on their side. So I had conversations, I was reaching out to a lot of our food donors last week, and one of our corporate headquarter contacts for a grocery chain, a large grocery chain, basically said she was surprised that we were still trying to pick up food because they understand, and most of their other agencies and partners they work with aren't able to do that anymore because they just don't have the capacity. And I think that really shows one of the key points of what we're able to do. We can innovate and be flexible. And so even when our individual agencies aren't able to pick up from a grocery store, we can then find a new agency that can pick up from that food and make sure the food still has a home. We also use a lot of tools from Feeding America. We are part of a network. Feeding America is a national organization of food banks, and we are one of those member food banks, 200 across the country, and we can share best practices, training, and tools. We also have opportunities to share donations. So if I have excess tomatoes from here or pineapples and someone from Idaho has excess potatoes, we can split. We can share those different donations. And that's been really invaluable during this time. So we're using tools such as they have a Meal Connect app that our agencies are able to use. And we've been testing this out. So in December, around the holidays, we started using this and offering out donations through text and through this online portal. And we had about a 40% acceptance. And so we've actually seen that increase to about a 90% acceptance rate, meaning that our agencies are more quickly able to adapt and rescue some of the food that's available because we can offer it to a lot more people. So it's not always as simple as give the food out to someone. It's finding the right food for the right people at the right time. And these tools allow us to do more of that. And it's exciting to see how quickly us and our agency network is able to pivot. Additionally, we're also using Feeding America's disaster response portal, and we're getting new donations from donors that we never previously had relationships with. So food donors can reach out to us through there, including the Walmart distribution centers and others like those, and get truckloads. So that has been really exciting to see how we're all adapting. Additionally, our staff is changing positions. So a lot of my staff is even moving to help and support other departments because not only do we need more food, it's also changing what our operations look like. Instead of giving it out our typical way, a lot of times we now need to repack all of that product, so both canned goods, into 25-pound boxes of shelf-stable items that we can give out to our agencies. As Jess mentioned, unfortunately, a lot of our agencies have had to close or just have extremely reduced capacity. So we're also partnering with other local groups, including Food Connect and Sharing Access, to provide additional logistics support of small volume. So, if we have about 200 pounds of food that needs to get picked up from a grocery store, we're able to use them to drop that off to one of our agency partners. So it allows our agencies to focus their own resources on other things within their operations. Right now, the best way I can describe it, because I think everyone always asks this question, what's the problem? I think the best way I describe it is it's a game of whack-a-mole. So we have one challenge in one place, and then the next week it's a challenge in somewhere else. So it's tested us, but it's also shown how much we're able to step up to that plate and be flexible with those. So at first, it was we didn't have enough food. Now it's maybe we don't have enough of the right food, but how do we make sure that we have the warehouse and the transportation team and enough staff to make sure we're safely and effectively distributing that food? And I can't tell you what's going to be our next challenge, but that's kind of where we're trying to plan right now. It used to be we were able to plan months out, and now it's week by week. So the next thing, even on my docket, is there's a lot of food service pack size product available. There's a couple opportunities from the USDA and others that are offering to repack that product, because typically a lot of our agents take a 40-pound box of chicken wings. They need it in smaller family size packaging. So how do we make sure that we're, again, getting that product into a format that works for our agencies? So I've been really excited about the work we've been doing in those areas. And it's going to continue to test our innovation and really look at how do we keep adapting. We're not going to get out of this challenge anytime soon. For us, we're very aware of farms are feeling this right now. So there's no one on the farms to pick those green beans. Well, if no one's picking it, then no one's going to be able to package it into cans. If no one can package it into cans, then there's not going to be more canned goods available for us. So how do we help support the food industry as a whole and do what we can to make sure that we're connecting food to the people that are in need? And I think that's kind of where I want to end and just say that I'm really thankful for, I am extremely thankful for all of our monetary donors like you, because you're allowing us to be more flexible. Having the funds that you support us with allows us to pivot and to change as these new opportunities come available, and to see what we've been able to do in this time. So with that, I want to turn it over to Kait Scully, our Director of Government Affairs, and she's going to talk a little bit more about our other partnerships with government at different levels.
Great. Thank you all so much for joining us today, and thank you, Kait and Jess, for those great presentations. My name is Kait Scully, and I am the Director of Government Affairs at Philabundance. I've been with the organization for over 1.5 years now, and prior to working at Philabundance, I did policy, advocacy, and communications work for an organization called the Center for Hunger-Free Communities, which is a research center at Drexel University. In my work, I have seen the impact of hunger, and I am so proud to work at an organization working to end it each and every day. In my time at Philabundance, I have learned so much about the complexities of sourcing and moving food. As Jess and Kait have discussed, there are so many considerations our teams work through on a daily basis, from what food is available to do we have the trucks to move the food, to if our agencies have the capacity to store the food, and then finally, is this product something that our clients want and can get home? All of these issues must be thought through carefully, and luckily the teams at Philabundance are experts at this process. And if I'm being honest, their expertise makes my job much easier because legislators want to work with us. In my role, I work to educate policymakers and administrators about our mission, our programs, and our needs. I'm often traveling to Harrisburg or DC under usual circumstances to meet with them or having them come visit one of our locations. On the one slide, you'll see a picture of Senator Casey. He's at our Galloway warehouse packing boxes. This is part of a senior box program that Philabundance participates in. And when legislators want to come visit us, I generally don't allow them just for the photo op, but try to get them to work a bit, moving food or talking with our staff or our clients. This way they get a deeper and firsthand understanding of our efforts, because like we've discussed, it's very complicated and very difficult work. So in those meetings with legislators, in addition to having them work a little bit, I talk with them about the complex nature of our work and let them know that Philabundance is so much more than just cans of food. Our innovative ideas and practices like the Philabundance Community Kitchen and our abundantly good cheese line are always topics of interest because we are always striving to do more. While the coronavirus has changed the focus of my conversations, that innovation, professionalism, and expertise are still at the forefront. When an organization such as ours does good work, it's easier to build strong relationships and open lines of communications at all of those levels of government. And just to give a little background, traditionally, Philabundance receives very little in government funding for the food that we provide. Thanks to our generous donors, such as yourselves, we're able to provide the food to communities without the significant red tape those programs often bring. We're proud that all of our food can serve all communities and that we can do more and be more nimble. Right now, in this current circumstance, though, we are certainly working with government for any additional funding that we can receive so that we can turn that around and provide it out to our clients. But in normal circumstances, while we might not rely on government for the food we distribute, we do work in very close partnership with our local, state, and federal leaders because we know hunger is too big of an issue to work on alone. And the strong foundation we have built with leaders over time has allowed us to quickly be able to respond to the needs during this crisis. Just one example, as Jess talked about the sites we're working on with the City of Philadelphia, our strong relationships with city officials has allowed us to immediately begin those discussions when things were shutting down. Philadelphia is the hungriest large city in the country. Prior to the COVID outbreak, Philadelphia was facing a food insecurity rate of 21%, meaning that 1 in 5 people did not have access to enough food for a healthy and active life. This crisis has just increased that number significantly. And as my colleagues have said, our agencies are seeing an increase of 30 to 50% of people in need of emergency food assistance. With these factors in mind, Philabundance quickly worked with the city of Philadelphia to begin those 40 sites and began moving food to them as quickly as possible. In addition, our community kitchen has been called upon to provide those ready-to-eat meals to people who are unhoused. We're working with the city to ensure safety, to ensure that we're picking sites that are good for all parties and for other people who are distributing food. As other emergency kitchens have closed, these outside distributions are so critical for people who do not have a house where they can cook products that are typically available at pantries and other distributions. These are leadership and our past successes. The city knew that they could rely upon us to meet the incredibly high need. And as we move forward with other distributions, we are working with the leadership at the city to ensure that we're not duplicating efforts. There's a lot of partners and programs working, all trying to address the needs, and we don't want to be tripping over each other. We want to be working as effectively and efficiently as possible. And similarly, we are in communication with local legislators throughout our service area to identify any of those gaps and work with our networks to fill those needs. Hunger is not just an issue facing Philadelphia, and our team coordinates with multiple partners in the counties outside the city to meet those needs as well. And because of my role, I receive numerous calls and have been over the past few weeks from legislators and their staffers. They know to come to Philabundance when they see a need in their community, and our agency relations team is doing an incredible job of fielding those requests and seeing what we might be able to do to help support. One legislator I recently spoke with talked about his constituents and how they might not have been people who relied upon Philabundance and our agencies in the past, but that they need us today. And with such high rates of unemployment, the face of hunger is changing. With the help of our leaders, we're working hard to effectively and efficiently move large amounts of food directly to people who need it today. Our history of innovation is helping us shift as this need is changed. On the state level, Philabundance works closely with a network of partners statewide. The network we're part of allows us to share our best practices and learn from each other. We want to be able to address the needs quickly, and having partners willing to share their lessons learned helps us to save time and effort so that we can focus on our mission. In addition, as a member of Feeding Pennsylvania, Philabundance is given direct access to the governor and the Secretary of Agriculture, so we can in real time update them on the food access challenges around the state. This partnership has already led to some increased resources for our efforts, including the government has now allowed PennDOT workers who are no longer working at their locations. They're coming to our warehouse and helping us box and sort food that we can distribute. We are also working closely with the state to advocate that restrictions on nutrition programs are lifted. As no contact pickups for food become normal, we do not want our agencies to have to get people to sign papers or have contact in other ways. The state has been an incredible partner in these efforts, which has helped us to keep our staff, our partners, and our volunteers safe, while we also move food to more people. And the majority of programs and policies that feed people throughout our country happen at the federal level. So programs like WIC, which serves women, infants, and children, the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance, or SNAP, and school and summer meals are all programs that come from the federal government. In addition, a program known as the Emergency Food Assistance Program is the main source of government food for food banks. The emergency declarations that have happened have also allowed Philabundance and other food banks to access additional resources, including funding, additional programs that have become available, and even access to help from groups like the National Guard. We're closely tracking the offerings and the changes to any of the nutrition programs and what resources may be available moving forward so that we can better use those opportunities to get more food into our service area. And while we traditionally may not rely heavily on government funds, we know that all of these programs are critical to the health and well-being of our clients. We have been in contact with federal legislators to talk about the importance of all nutrition programs and work to ensure that they're strengthened at this critical time. We're communicating those changes to any of the programs and any of the relief bills to our agencies so our clients can access all of the resources available to them. We know that people who have never relied upon SNAP or who have never been to a pantry are in need today, and they need help navigating these complex systems. So we are working with our partners to create flyers and other materials to very effectively communicate these opportunities to our clients. So again, I want to thank you all for joining us today. Your support really does mean the difference for so many in our area. And I now want to turn the presentation over to Laura Schepps, Philabundance's Chief Finance Officer, who will give you a sense of where we are financially.
Hi, Laura, you're on mute. Hey, Laura, we still can't hear you. So what I can do here.
Okay, can you hear me now?
We can hear you. Thank you.
All right. Sorry about that. Switched offices. Okay, so thanks again for joining us today. My name is Schepps, and I've been with Philabundance for about 2.5 years. My responsibilities include leading the finance, IT, HR, and business process improvement organizations at Philabundance. Before joining Philabundance, I spent years in financial services, and after that, about 7.5 years in academia. So historically, Philabundance has relied on private philanthropy to support us with food, funds, and volunteers. We receive very little financial support from government sources. We are excellent stewards of those funds as we spend 88 cents of every dollar on our programs. The current crisis has impacted our spending in many ways, from higher staffing costs to extra food costs. We have received some very generous high-profile donations. We have already seen those donations wane. Unfortunately, we do not expect the need to decrease at the same rate. Feeding America, the national organization which supports Philabundance and approximately 200 other food banks nationwide, estimates that there will be a 46% increase in food insecurity over the next 6 months. As you have heard from some of the others, or nationally, we have over 25 million people unemployed in the United States. We expect that these numbers will require Philabundance to serve more people long after our social distancing requirements may end. This will require us to manage our funds carefully. So some of the details of our latest forecasting for our fiscal year 2020, which ends in September, shows an increase in food purchasing. We are projecting food purchasing to be $4.1 million this year versus a budgeted and a prior year dollar amount of $1.6 million. That's $2.5 million and 150% over our budget and prior year. We're also spending more on staffing for various reasons. For example, we project to spend more on overtime, about 55% over budget and 46% over last year. Our staff is working extra hours, as some of you've heard from my other colleagues. They're working on weekends to try and make sure we fulfill all the different requirements that we're experiencing right now. In addition, we've had to bring in temp help for those who have had to stay home for childcare purposes, and that's increasing that expense line 200% over our budget. And finally, we're handing out stipends for hazard pay for those on the front lines in our warehouse. We're forecasting over $300,000 over budget and prior year for that expense. And with that, I will turn over the program for Q&A. You can hit on the right of your screen, there's a chat box where you can submit questions.
Thank you, Laura. So one of the questions we have here, and I'll ask Jess to maybe jump in and answer this. Are there particular innovations that you've been forced to make during this crisis that will be especially useful during useful to Philabundance post-crisis?
Yeah, so I can speak a bit in terms of our agency network. I think this has really made us, as Kait was mentioning, talking about food acquisition, and I'd love to get her thoughts on this too, but in terms of being more nimble and really reaching out to our agency network and getting even more feedback than we regularly get, and sort of it's causing all of us to think of new ways to serve the clients that are in need. And maybe going forward from this, we find that, oh, a drive up distribution maybe works for some seniors in the community, or other different variations that we've seen on the agency level might stick into future programming. And I think only time will tell, but it's kind of been a great testing pot, even though we were sort of forced into it, to see what our agencies are capable of above and beyond the normal. And we're just blown away by the response and the flexibility from the network. So I think it'll be really interesting to see how we all move forward from this.
Hi. So I would agree with everything, Jeff. I think we keep using the quote, necessity is the mother of invention. And that is very true right now. We have discovered a lot of opportunities. I think for us, and the way I think about it, it's always just having more tools in our. So yes, we have tractor trailers, we have box trucks, we now have sprinter trucks, or sprinter vans, I should say. So we have different opportunities that can handle different types of food. We also have different systems that are set up. Again, when we're getting 5 loads from a tractor trailer a day, that's going to be one system. If we have highly perishable product that needs to go out very quickly, we have text blast that we can do. We have a list of agencies that we can know that can take different product. It's just, for us, it's really about how do we create new systems for this and be able to share out information quicker and quicker to everyone. So I think what Philabundance does really well is we're a funnel that can take the 10 to 10,000 pounds of food that are available and then match it to the right people who need that food. Because it's not as easy as, okay, this one thing matches this one person. So we have all of that expertise and that knowledge. And the more that we keep sharing that out and building on it, I think that's the stuff that we're going to take forward from this. Yeah.
Thank you. Kait, I actually have another question for you. Someone had asked, what is the other organization besides Food Connect that we work with? And I believe that's Sharing Access. Can you talk a little bit more about how we work together, what that process looks like?
Yeah, sure. So those are 2 amazing groups. On top of our agency networks, we have some really strong agencies that have their own trucks and different vehicles and warehousing space. But then sometimes we have some of our smaller agencies that maybe don't have access to those resources. And there's sometimes donor opportunities that it just doesn't make sense for our trucks to go out and pick up a tray of sandwiches. Or if there was an event and maybe at the end of it, there could be, 20 pounds of food left over, or there could be 200 pounds of food left over. So we work with Sharing Access and Food Connect to, especially in Philadelphia, rescue some of that food, and we give them a list of our agencies, so that way they can drop that food off to our agencies. So they're kind of that middleman, and we're able to deploy them when it makes sense for them to do that opportunity. They also have their own operations they do outside of. I think to go back to that innovation side, it really is more efficient when we can collaborate instead of compete. And so the more that we can all work together and we share resources and opportunities, that makes us stronger as a community.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Next question, Sarah. Philabundance, I noticed has been getting a lot of media attention for some large donations from local celebrities, some of the sports teams and athletes. What happens with that money, and is that enough? Do we need more donations?
So of course I'm going to say we need more donations, and it's true, we do need more donations. People have been unbelievably generous to us. Kate said earlier, it is a bit of whack-a-mole. We identify one problem, we find a solution to it, and a day, an hour, a week later, there's a whole new set of problems that we need to find solutions for. The flexibility of the funds that we have allows us to find those solutions. It also allows us to purchase the food when we can find it. And I believe it was noted that when we can find the food, we are seeing increases in cost of up to 30%. So we have had some high-profile donations, and they are meaningful and impactful, but every donation to Philabundance is impactful. 88%, 88 cents of every dollar goes directly to the work that we do, and it all matters to us.
Next question, and I don't know, Sarah, if you want to take this, or maybe Jess. How are we the same, and how are we different from Share, another food network, food bank in the Philadelphia area?
I was just actually writing a response to that question, so I'll start, and if any of my colleagues want to jump in, please feel free to do so. So we are a larger organization in terms of our budget. We rely less heavily on government support, which was mentioned before, than they do. This allows us to be, I think, nimble, to have fewer reporting requirements, be less bureaucratic. It also allows us to serve a very broad cross-section of people. People who come to a Philabundance agency for food don't have to show ID for the majority of our programs that we work on.
Yeah, this is Jess, and I would say Share also has a very large agency network in the city, some of which overlaps with ours, and both food banks service those agencies, and some they serve independently. The project with the city for the 40 distribution sites has sort of had us working very closely and to our strengths to supply the food that's needed for those sites and utilize our transportation as best as possible. So we both serve slightly different networks, but the same mission at the end of the day, and we've been able to work pretty collaboratively during this crisis.
Thank you. Kait, I think this question might be directed towards you. Is Philabundance able to increase our intake of milk so that dairy farmers don't throw it away? I guess similar products, farm products that we've heard about in the news recently.
Yeah, so yes, we are definitely doing everything we can to take in more milk at this time. The hard part is, very honestly, there's a lot more challenges than it can appear on the surface. So a lot of the milk is already packaged in either individual containers or it's in crates. It also has a really short shelf life. So we're trying to take in as much as we can, but it's how quickly can we turn it around? How quickly can our agency network metabolize it? And we've been working challenges with how it's packaged, as far as whether it's in crates and making sure we can return those crates to our food donors. But I also want to make sure it's important to point out that, as I was mentioning during even my presentation, our donation volume is generally about the same overall, but we're having huge increases in produce and dairy. And so when we have limited capacity, but we also know our clients need more protein and they need more shelf-stable items, we have to make sure that we're also sharing capacity across all of those different categories so that we can give a balanced mix of food to everyone. You can't give double the milk but not any protein. So everyone needs to make sure that we need to make we're doing the best we can to steward our resources and make sure that we're providing for our network. It is actively a challenge that we're continuing to look at. As I think Kait Scully mentioned earlier, I also oversee our Abundantly Good program, and we do work with local farmers to turn a lot of the excess milk to cheese for our clients through a funding mechanism. So yes, we'll keep doing it, but the availability of milk is even above and beyond what we can take right now. So it is kind of one of the things that us and Feeding America as a whole are at right now.
And this is a financial question. So for Laura, if Philabundance has extraordinary expenses at this time, and even with extensive fundraising can't cover current expenses, do we have to borrow to get past the crisis? On the expectation that money raised in the future will address the debt.
So far, we have not had to borrow money in my 2.5 years here. And right now, we're not projecting that we will. It's hard to say what the future will bring as things are changing in this crisis hourly. Right now, I would say at least through our end of fiscal year, we should be fine without taking on any more debt.
Great to hear. Thank you. For Jess, are any partners being left out of the new model in light of some of the changes that need to be made to address COVID-19?
Yeah, so as I mentioned in the beginning of the presentation, we have about 70 agencies that closed during this crisis. And I think that was just due to their size and their ability to have staff and volunteers and safely distribute. It might be about the space they're operating out of. So several of those, as I mentioned, are remaining closed. A few have reopened as they've been able to navigate the new world. And so our hope is that to help the areas where that maybe agencies close down and aren't able to reopen during this time, we can either have a city distribution or we may be able to bring on new partners. But there are some which, just due to their size, and they may only be 1 or 2 folks running the pantries, they're not able to continue, but we're glad to have them back when normalized operations recontinue and, get them back up and running. Anybody who closed is certainly still on the list to receive food once they're safely able to.
Jess or Kait, if we could talk a little bit about volunteers right now and how we're using them. Is it different from normal operations and how we use volunteers, and do we still need more right now?
Sure, I can take this one. So we are still having regular repack shifts at our Galloway warehouse in South Philly. So those opportunities are on our website, philabundance.org. I don't think there's full shifts worth that we're looking for, but there's certainly slots here and there that folks can fit into during the week. We are also funneling folks to the City of Philadelphia website to help out at the Roxborough distribution packing warehouse. So all the boxes that are going out to those 40 sites get repacked by a couple hundred volunteers each week. So that's a great place for volunteers to go. And there also should be on our website some opportunities to volunteer at the agency network. A lot of agencies are looking for additional hands on deck to help with social distancing and other safety precautions while they're distributing food. So that's a good place to look.
And I'll just add to that we definitely do need volunteers at our Galloway warehouse in South Philadelphia. We've actually reduced the numbers of volunteers on any one shift to accommodate for social distancing, and we adhere to all of the CDC requirements. But if you know anybody who's healthy and would like to volunteer, absolutely go to philabundance.org for that.
Thank you. So I don't want to take up too much of anyone's time. So I just want to, if there are additional questions, I see some here that we're not going to be able to get to. We will certainly follow up with you after this, but just wanted to say thank you and turn it back over to Sarah for some closing remarks.
Hi, so thank you all for making the time to join us today. One of the most important points that we hope you take away from this presentation is that although we're weathering a crisis right now, there is no doubt that the increased demand for food we're seeing will continue for an unknown period of time and may even increase. We're currently in an acute situation, needing to both manage what is immediately in front of us, while at the same time trying to plan for a new world of chronic food insecurity in the months ahead. Less than an hour before this presentation began, I received an email from a colleague who heads our agency relations team. She was replying to an all-staff email I have been sending out weekly with quotes of good wishes from our donors. It's a simple but effective morale builder that gets nice feedback from staff. But this colleague said, I have the great benefit of witnessing the impact from the distribution side of operations. However, to see people trust us with their money is so humbling. The magnitude of giving and trust people have in us motivates me to do our job with great integrity and makes me proud to work here. We're all proud to work at Philabundance, but our work doesn't happen without your support. We're committed to helping our neighbors and the community. Thank you again for your partnership and for placing your trust in Philabundance. We are grateful. Please stay safe.